This meeting is called to order.
Welcome back.
Need a motion for participation. I'll do that.
I move that Mike Powers' request to attend today's meeting of the JMRL board remotely due to personal matters, specifically personal travel, be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everybody, it's unanimous. Okay. Let's see. Disposition of the minutes. This meeting. Is there any comments or anything for the minutes? Otherwise, a motion to accept them.
I move that we accept the minutes as published.
Second? Oh, we don't need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, Sierra.
Any announcements, the public comment?
No one in the room. If anybody online would like to make public comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. I don't think we have any public comments.
Okay. Good. Okay, so I guess we're moving right along to our continuing education. That would be Jim.
Catch up with you.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay, nice.
Somebody showed me how to
Waiting
move
for me.
this thing. You showed me how to move this thing out of the way. Hi, this loading meeting. Just as by way of introduction, we have Jerry Carchidi, JMRL's business manager, who's here to give an update to the board and a refresh course on JMRL's budget and financial cycle. Take it away, Jerry.
Thank you, David. To emphasize a little bit what David was saying is that today's not quite an education, but more a refresher. Most, if not all of you, have been through the stages of our budget process before and approved different parts of our budget, but this is more to summarize all the budget pieces together and some of the steps that we take through the budget process for the operating and equipment budget, as well as some of the ongoing budget items that happen during the year. So what you have reflected on the screen is an infographic that was put together a few months ago to try to reflect all of the funding sources for JMRL and then flowing from left to right, what the specific purposes of those are. On the left side, the funding sources, Albemarle through Nelson, plus state aid represents the operating budget. The three pieces below that, the collected revenue, Friends of the Library, and Friends Endowment Fund. Well, the collected revenue is the equipment fund, the fees and fines. Friends of the Library and the Friends Endowment Fund, also referred to as CACF, that administers those funds for us for a total of 11.3 million. And then on the right side, the various purposes that the funds go towards, again, from salaries and benefits down through operational costs, books and materials and equipment are all operating budget broad categories. Strike that's through books and materials as the operating budget. The collected revenue equipment fund funds the equipment, 245,000, and then each of the last two, the programming and support, are from Friends of the Library and the Friends Endowment Fund, respectively. Questions before I that? So it's a little different representation of how we've looked at the budget before, split up into pieces and sort of consolidates it a bit. Questions? Okay. Moving on to the operating budget. We're always in the middle of the budget season here at JMRL. I've worked for 5 or 6 different municipalities, and this is by far the longest schedule. We start preparing for the next fiscal year in September, 2 months into the fiscal year. Part of that is because it takes a while. Also, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but the regional agreement also dictates that it's done by a certain date. And that means prep in front of the various board subcommittees, as well as the board as a whole, and then getting that approved budget to the jurisdictions, which also adds a little bit to the complexity. We have 5 different jurisdictions. And Luis, I believe, does the first one in December typically. Is that correct?
Generally, we'll meet with them all in December. We have a January 15th hard deadline to submit everything.
So it's a long lead time for each of the jurisdictions to have their review as well. And as you all know, that sometimes has changes through that process for various costs. State aid, health insurance, and retirement typically are large scale costs that we have to make adjustments for throughout the year. And so it's typically not until June that we have a final budget. So during the fall, we begin that process. At the same time, we are doing our day-to-day things on the current year budget, as well as closing out prior year's budget. So August, September, and October, it's juggling 3 budgets at a time and always reminding ourselves which budget we're talking about. Questions about the schedule? So the next section, a little detail on the operating budget. Again, you've seen these, the next 2 slides before. This is from the fiscal, oh, wait, David, catch up. This is from the fiscal 26 adopted budget, the current year that we're in. Slide down one more. There you go. Thank you. And this is typically how we represent the budget that's presented to the jurisdictions and to the public by account. But with 1 year of actuals, 1 year, 2024 in this case, 2025, the current year that we're in, the time this budget is the budget's put together, and then a proposed budget, and then some comparison of changes from year to year. Part of this process is also looking at prior year's actuals, which I don't show there, but have access to and use to kind of project and look at some historicals as well. Following that screen is again another report that is part of the monthly budget package that you all receive, that shows the current budget year, what we've spent up to that point in the year, and what % is expended. And we use that as a tool to see where we might have potential savings or over expenditure that need to be dealt with throughout the year. And we do that monthly for the operating budget and the equipment budget that we'll get to momentarily. Questions? Okay. This next, actually, Dave, if you could start with the one scroll to there, yes. Again, this is part of the adopted fiscal 26 budget, is at the back, and is a breakout of the different branches and departments and the individual items that you all approved during the fiscal 26 budget process. For fiscal 26, as we anxiously await the next page, $245,000 total, which you might remember as from the first slide, $245,000 grand total for the equipment fund. And Dave, if you could scroll back up one more report. Yeah. So this report is again part of the monthly budget package that you all receive. Actually, no, could you? That's the one I'm looking for. Yes, thanks. This part of the monthly budget report shows revenue received to date, equipment fund expense in different categories, and then the fund balance, the current fund balance represented month by month. So when we talk about the fund balance from time to time, both for the operating budget, which is separate from the equipment fund balance, this is the balance that we're talking about.
With that note.
Sorry.
Just with the note that that's not final until we get audited, and that has been, you all are aware, it's a long process. So this is usually I will say Jerry's numbers are there and better than the others until they actually get to them. So I trust this, but it's still pending an official audit.
Right. So, and I don't know if it's included there, David, but I have, along with that monthly report is, okay, there's, it's short because it's relatively early in the year at the time this was printed. A list of the individual actual items that have been purchased so far, to date during the fiscal year from the equipment fund. Moving on to the next major piece, Friends of the Library budget that you all approved in the spring as well. This is a budget report that I can and do produce monthly or more frequently. And it's a snapshot of the expenditures from each of the Friends of the Library accounts for those various purposes, primarily programming and supplies at each of the branches and departments, and for some specific purposes as well. Most of those down at the bottom.
Clarify one thing, the Friends Board approves this in June. I share it with you all, but they're the body that's spending the money, so they're the ones that approve it.
Laundromat, laundry.
That's been what?
Yeah,
10 years?
it's a project that one of the Friends board members started before she was a board member, Pat Dogle, and what she does is help bring books to local laundromats and leave them there, kind of like a little free library, but it's reading materials for families, and it includes some information about JMRL so that while families are waiting for laundry, there are reading materials there. And these are the costs that she spends to sticker them and to collect things. And she's got boxes and boxes of books in her garage, actually.
She lets the families take the books home.
Wonderful.
It's a very nice program. Maybe Pat would like to do a CE for the board someday.
And finally, of the four major funding sources is the Friends Endowment Fund, also known as, referred to as CACF at times. Again, this particular report and proposal you've seen before, and along with the, I guess not sample, their comprehensive list of the different projects we're planning on in fiscal year 26, about $112,000 worth of different projects. Some of them are sort of standing items up the top, same for the same page program, a couple of scholarship programs, out of area fees, et cetera. So the rest below that are for specific projects that are requested by branch managers and department managers, and they go through a several step approval process.
Questions? The budget that we're doing for fiscal year 27, right?
Yes.
Will that reflect, that won't reflect? Actually, we don't need these, right? That's not gonna kick in for another year.
That would kick in with
The-
that budget.
The budget for that, for the expenditure of those funds, is the equipment budget, which the board votes on to append to the operational budget in June. So the budget committee will meet again in the spring to review the requests coming in for equipment for next year. And that's where you'll see kind of the lack of revenue there. Now, I will say that when the budget committee looks at the fiscal year 27 operational budget on Thursday and then talks about it for the full board on during their November meeting, there will be some impact that Jerry and I will discuss with you all, like some potential state aid funding that per the presentation we gave a few months ago, hold aside for equipment rather than spend it for books and materials.
A strange question. Maybe you've already answered this. I always notice when things go down and that retirement was going down. Is there a reason for that? Is that just?
For next year's
Well, it's gone down the-
operational. Yeah, so retirement at JMRL is complicated. We currently offer two separate systems. JMRL pays the city of Charlottesville for access to their benefits package there. One of those is is a one that's not being offered anymore. It's a defined benefits plan. That is a pension plan effectively that the board, a different version of this board, opted out of some 10 plus years ago. So there are costs associated with that that fluctuate based on the actuarial numbers that the city gets. So we apply those per the folks that are currently on that plan. And that, in theory, was supposed to be going down for many years, has been generally going down for the last few years. Every new employee since that time, though, is on a defined contribution plan, and that is static. It is an 8% contribution by the organization into a retirement fund for the employee when they start. When it hits 5 years of service, it goes up to 9%. When they hit 10 years of service, it goes up to 10%. So those, it kind of depends on if we have a lot of new hires that are starting at a lower salary, that number might go down some. Or if the market has done very well for the pension plan, which it did last year, those numbers went down a little bit. If it doesn't, then they go up.
I would assume as we, continue to raise salaries, then that would go up.
Well, it depends. Like the
8%.
board's goal 10 plus years ago was to lower those costs over time, which is why they decided not to offer the defined benefits plan anymore. So the thinking there was that those were going to go down over time. It's going to take a long tail for that. But if you see this is this current year's budget. The retirement number here was down like 2.2%. So that's the one we're living in now. I can't remember off the top of my head what the proposed one is that the budget committee is going to be talking about, but it'll be somewhere close to, it didn't go up or down dramatically. That's a good question.
Any other questions?
I see Siri's online.
Oh,
Yes, Siri, Siri is on and available. So actually that means ideally we would get another motion to allow Siri to participate.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah.
He's got a bit of.
Puts it on set.
Very much part.
Do you want to cut Jerry loose while we're doing
Yeah,
that?
I could talk about budgets for hours. But you told me 15 minutes, so. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move that Celia Russell's request to attend today's meeting of the JMRL board remotely due to personal matters, specifically childcare, be approved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome back.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Thank you, Jerry. Okay, we're ready for our policy committee report.
I will try and start this, and I've had a little bit of communication glitches. If those pop up, then we'll hand over. The policy committee met today and discussed 5 policies, 3 recommended from the committee to the board. And I'm seeing a little flash on my screen for unstable connection. How am I doing so far?
Good.
It's okay right now, but it's a little dicey.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 3 that you'll see in new business are makerspaces, JMRL board committees, and record retention. So we'll discuss kind of the changes and updates to those in new business. And we also started just looking at the remaining policies that are due this calendar year under our 10-year review cycle. And those are volunteers and AV equipment. And it'll be another meeting or 2 before the board sees those for the versions of those. Any questions on today's policy committee meeting? Thanks.
Next, we have our Personnel Committee. Thanks, Mike. Great.
We met on September 30th, and while we do find all requests that are made by our personnel to be important, we did select 7 items to focus on this year and to put forth to the Budget Committee. And can I turn it over to you, David, to go into
Sure.
that?
Yeah, so we're gonna move, Alita, we're gonna move right on into the new business budget discussion, personnel committee.
Okay.
Okay, kind of flows from what Brandy was saying there. So before we get into the specifics of those requests, just general budget updates for everybody include the fact that I did meet with the executive arm of each of our 5 jurisdictional partners, as we do annually prior to October 15th. It's kind of a pre-budget meeting. They all expressed concern over a slowed rate of income over the last few years. So this year's rate of income is not where it has been for them over the last few years. They described it as a return to normal that many involved in local government haven't seen as normal because of the growth of revenues for the last few years. So I heard that from more than one jurisdiction, that things have been going so well financially that this was more like a normal that longtime staff are used to, but that maybe newer staff or elected officials aren't going to be used to because there's not as much new money coming in. So they were all cautious about fiscal year 27, but at this point, nobody's planning for a recession, just increased costs across the board and revenue not growing as fast as it has been. So most jurisdictions concurred with the best approach for JMRL is to hold the line, not to hurry to add too many new services or positions, but they were generally supportive of their approach of the board to increase compensation. This is before they saw any numbers, which they'll see, of course, once you all vote on a budget. But in general, they were supportive of that strategy, similar to last year's. It's like, let's move the compensation project along with the staff that we have. Okay, and then to just also briefly, retirement numbers for the defined benefits are in, as Meredith was just asking about, although I will also mention that when the board starts to look at the budget, that what I mentioned about the defined contribution plan at 5 years, that the employee gets a 9%, so they get a 1% increase basically in what their retirement had been. It had been 8% going into a fund, now it's 9%, and at 10 years that goes up to 10%. That has been in place now for 4 years, I believe, the city's retirement plan, but for the first 4 years, the city funded it out of forfeiture funds. So this is effectively folks that were hired, paid something into the retirement system, or had some funds available that they no longer were able to get because they left employee. So the city was sitting on some amount of money in that retirement fund that they were able to use to fund this change for the last few years. This is the first year, fiscal year 27, in which they're not going to be able to do that. So JMRL has to absorb those costs. Okay, just a point of something that we'll be talking about as we're looking at the budget moving forward. Okay, so Brandy, I'm going to bring up the list here and we will.
When you met with the executive
Yes.
director, did they have any information about health costs or?
No, it's only the city that's healthcare costs drive JMRL's healthcare costs, and they did not at that time, although the city's budget office did say that they did have a high number of claims last year, which is what has been driving the increase. So the budget that the budget committee is going to discuss this week includes a placeholder of a 15% increase in healthcare costs, which is an enormous increase, but it's not nearly what last year's was. Yes. So we're going to wait on pins and needles for that number to come in, and likely it will again come in after the board, especially since the board is going to be voting earlier in November this year. We won't know that until
Could be
later.
after Louisa meets.
We'll have that conversation with them first to say, hey, you guys want to wait this? Okay, so let's take a look at, I just figured out how to hide floating meeting controls. Yes, always learning. Let's find your, here we go. Thank you. So as Brandy said, there were 7 proposals that made it through the personnel committee. And I did want to point out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 requests did not make it through. So this is half of what staff were looking for in terms of added services. Now, some of them at Northside, the personnel committee were suggesting get combined. I'll talk about that in a second. So it's not quite as bad as only half of them made it through. Top priority from the personnel committee includes securing funding to continue positive progression on JMRL's pay scale, which the board also voted as their top budget priority for next year. So that's no change there. A part-time web content specialist to work with our digital services coordinator. This is an ongoing request. The personnel committee considered this to be the top request for next year. Adding 8 additional weekly hours to the current 32-hour bookmobile specialist position. So what this would do, and this would only work if Greene County was interested in this proposal, Martha, it would be bringing bookmobile services to Greene County, meaning that all 5 JMRL jurisdictions have some measure of bookmobile service. So effectively, this becomes, I hate to use the term a la carte, but like Greene County can decide for Greene County whether or not this is something they want to do. In the past, when you and I have talked to them about it, they've been very interested. So we'll see if the price is right there. Some branch support substitute hours at Louisa County. Reclassifying 2 positions at the Makerspace Lab, the former Monticello Avenue Lab. Those jobs were called lab monitor, and their job was to be in the room while people were using the computers and assist them with printing and things like that. Well, now those positions, we're asking them to help people 3D print or to digitize things, and it's more in line with what at JMRL is called a specialist level position. So it's to recalibrate those 2 positions and make sure that they're compensated for what they're being asked to do.
So that would be an increase in their pay.
Yes. Some substitute hours at the children's desk at the Northside Library. And then finally, a new 20-hour branch specialist position. So this is what I was referring to. We got several requests from Northside for new positions in several different service areas, and the personnel committee was suggesting that we might be able to hire 1 person that could work multiple service desks, similar to a model that the Central Library has been using for a little while now. And I spoke to the branch manager about that, and they were basically like, well, if that's the option, then that's
We'll take it.
So not to get too in the weeds, because the budget committee will get into it, but I can give costs for any of those. This is not something that the personnel committee discussed. The personnel committee's job is to look at what the needs are of the library system and to put those forward. Then it's the budget committee's job to decide whether or not these are affordable. So I brought with me cost information for any given one of those per jurisdiction, if anyone has a question about any. Otherwise, these will come up again as the budget committee discusses and the full board discusses. Any questions on that? Anything
Wait
else?
until Thursday.
Yeah, wait until Thursday. Anything else to add
I
there,
don't
Brandy?
think so. I think we pretty much covered everything.
So the potential first reading.
Yes.
Okay, based on just communication here, because this is a longer chunk, maybe I can ask for Anne and David to walk through each of these 3 new versions of policies that have been forwarded. They're being recommended by the policy committee.
Sure. Do that.
I'll just go with the first one. The first one, this is just for a first read today, is the makerspaces. As you recall, we eliminated the Monticello Avenue policy, and now we're recommending that we have a JMRL makerspaces, which would be policy 4.6, which reflects the current reality in the libraries. And I could read it. Would that be helpful to read it? This is, and I'll read it. In order to support the library's mission to foster personal growth and lifelong learning for all by connecting people with ideas, information, each other, the individual JMRL branches may offer makerspaces. These makerspaces are self-directed learning and working spaces that encourage creativity, experimentation, and learning by providing access to new technologies, skill building, computer, hardware and software, information, supplies, and equipment intended to support individual projects. Local funding dictates what level of equipment and staff support is offered at any branch. Users of JMRL makerspaces must follow the policy for conduct and any other applicable library policies. There may be fees associated with the use of materials, age restrictions, or there may be fees or age restrictions associated with the use of materials. I'm reading for mine. Or specific training requirements.
Yeah, so that is this version the current?
The blue line is what the policy committee added today.
And the other, in the second paragraph, encourage, you have encourage up there, we have foster in the handouts.
But it's up here and then here, see what was read. And I think that's leading to some confusion.
Yeah.
Where's that one? Can someone point that out to me?
So on the last page of the book, our handouts
Yeah.
is showing what's on the screen, but what, following along with it being read aloud, there were some differences.
There's still some differences
As in-
between this and that too.
Okay.
And it says encourage creativity up there. It says foster creativity here.
Okay.
Foster was one of the words that stuck out to me.
There's foster in the first paragraph too, but the second paragraph says encourage.
Right.
And on our page, it says foster creativity. So I don't know which one.
Does the board have I mean, this is the first reading.
That would be multiple fosters.
Yeah,
Maybe that was
I
one.
think encourages better.
I like encourage better.
We've already fostered personal growth.
Yeah.
Now we give encouragement.
Yeah.
Not sure how that happened.
You should nurture.
Is there another?
No.
Else that I.
Definitely the age restrictions. which
Yeah,
they have.
the age restrictions,
Other
but there
than
was
that, no.
also equipment and mine just says
Yeah.
supplies and that says supplies and equipment.
It should be.
I know mine
supplies.
says new
So
technology, skill building, equipment, computer, hardware and software and supplies.
Right.
And so equipment is not listed behind after skill building.
It moved. Yeah, it was something that was already in there, but after skill building, it's fine.
So I'm sorry. We just need to make sure that we've got for the public that what we're presenting here is what's going to be voted on next month. So I'm a visual learner.
So on your page right in front of you, it
Yeah.
says skill building, comma, equipment, comma,
Oh.
computer, hardware and software, comma. So it just seems like it got moved over to supplies.
So the equipment is after skill building. Got it. Got it. Good eyes.
I'm wondering if what's on the screen, David, is a later version somehow than what's in the handouts.
Yeah, and sounds like it, but I'm not sure how that.
Yeah. In which case, I think we could just say, hey, we're going with the version on the screen and reprint that for the actual vote for a month from now.
Yeah. Well, this is fine. I mean, both those changes are.
Yeah.
We're very.
Sure.
So I would say just this is the board's first reading here and that this will be presented. Mike, is that all right?
You want to add?
Yeah, I think we're saying the same thing. The first reading is what's on the screen.
Yeah, and supplies.
Thank you, Peter. Boy, I'm getting ninth grade English flashbacks. Okay. So the only, I think, conceptual difference from what was in your handouts is the addition of potential age restrictions. For instance, the north side makerspace is in the teen room. It's intended for teen use, and there might be other restrictions based on age and parental consent too. All right.
And I'll just chime in just to kind of contextualize the overall goal here that the committee came out of committee discussions was makerspaces were kind of tangentially mentioned or associated with the Monticello Avenue policy that got deprecated. And we, as part of that, it kind of came to discussion of, well, let's just have something broad for the public to understand that we have these makerspaces and why and what the scope of it is, and a little bit about how they're funded, because it is sort of jurisdiction specific. So kind of comparable in some ways to the bookmobile, some of the portions of the bookmobile, just explaining what the service is and why we have it. That's the main goal here, as a more informational, and then the staff operationally through procedures will define exactly the offerings and which machines are in which spot and which ones require training and all of that. That's all procedural.
Okay, the next one is the JMRL board committees. And I will let you.
So this is out of cycle here, and it actually came from a recommendation from the technology committee over the summer that the call out here for what the technology committee's goals and visions are needed to be updated a bit. So that came to the policy committee, who looked at the whole thing. In general, the policy committee also looked at the board bylaws, which only specify 2 standing committees, budget and finance and personnel. So those are the only 2 that by the bylaws you have to have. But the board has for a long time had long-standing, ongoing policy committees, technology committees, and strategic plan committees. So the bylaws allow for special committees created by the president, but these are the ongoing special committees. And I think the policy committee doesn't see any future in which we're not having these 5 committees. So we just clarified that to line this up a little bit with the language that's in the bylaws. The policy committee has a few suggestions here. The first one is in A2 to review JMRL's policies for alignment with ALA recommendations. As the American Library Association doesn't have any enforcement wing, there is no compliance with. So it's just making sure that the organizations are aligned. In 5, clean up the language a little bit to reflect reality, which is that the policy committee reviews all policies on a regular schedule. And we changed the policy committee today, added the at least every 10 years, which I thought was more clear than no more than 10 years. And because of that addition, felt that the last sentence was no longer needed. Keep JMRL policies up to date with changes and new policies approved by the Board of Trustees. Technology committees wanted to change their second and third lines here to make library technology budget recommendations to JMRL's Board of Trustees. That be. And to review and suggest updates to technology elements of, am I crazy, or these should be either the JMRL strategic plan and strategic implementation plan? Strategic Planning Committee offered no changes here, but we did add the word "the" to make it make sense. And then also reflecting what the bylaws say, additional special committees or working groups may be created by the president as described in the bylaws. And this board has done that several times to great success for the last few years. Striking the words that the Board of Trustees only welcome staff representation on standing committees, just to be more all-encompassing there. Finally, there was a line about the board supporting the creation and maintenance of a staff association when organized by employees. There is no current staff association, but one sprung into place in the 80s and 90s as a method of communicating staff needs and desires to the library board and to the library director. The policy committee felt that this was not the appropriate place for this, and the recommendation is to remove this language and put it in the employee handbook and then have the board endorse that, so that there's no loss of weight to it. It's just not in the committee's policy. And that Mike reminded me that the goal was to have the board hear about the changes to the employee handbook on an annual basis, and we're overdue for that. So either in November or December, I'll come back and here's a list of the things that have changed, and it will include that addition.
Does anybody have any questions about that?
Makes sense.
Then the last one is the records retention and disposition. And this has been dramatically changed. 7 pages of crap.
It's just been moved. It's been reorganized.
So it was our,
And you love that?
it was our position that we just have a general statement about record retentions and then move the procedural part, which is really just the provisions of the Virginia Public Records Act. Basically the Library of Virginia's policy on record retention and disposition be put into procedure. For the policy 1.7, just a general statement about record retention. Do you want me to read it? Should I read it? I guess I'll read it.
All of this that's been deleted is now where?
It is going to
It's
be
going to be in the procedure.
Procedure.
Employee
in
procedure.
staff procedure. So by the time the board votes on this, this will all have moved to the existing staff procedure and been updated at the same time because it hasn't been updated. We just need to verify that this is still in compliance with what the state is asking.
Okay.
And I did take this to the records retention office at the Library of Virginia and say, hey, we've got all this detail in our policy. My thinking is that the board just needs to say, we're gonna follow the law here. And they said that's more appropriate so that you don't have to change it every time there's a change in what the records retention schedule is. They put those out for various different levels of organizations on a regular basis. So the board should have been, every few months revising this. And instead we'll have a statement saying we're gonna follow the overall law and guidance from the state, and then staff can revise the procedure as needed.
Remind me tangentially, where FOIA requests, are they a policy or a procedure?
Yeah, there's a separate FOIA policy that is also very detailed, but and these two things, as the policy committee was talking about, go hand in hand. Is that most people who are interested in getting information from the library system also need to know, well, how long reasonably are you keeping it, or are you in compliance with this? So there's a separate FOIA, there's a separate policy and a separate procedure. But the bottom line is that those requests come through the FOIA officer, who's the same as the records officer, who's your library director.
Any questions about this? Yeah.
Order is better.
Yes.
No question? Okay, we've already gone through. Okay, we're back to you, Dave.
Okay, you all are rolling through your agenda today. This probably should have been an announcement at the beginning, but I do have the final numbers from the Friends of the Library's annual fall book sale, and it's a new record of $183,501 in $2, $3 books. So if you see any friends of the library, or if you know any, thank them profusely for all the hard work that went into this. Peter Mano and Austin managed this 10-day sale beautifully. It was when I went a few times and spoke to them, and they said, yeah, it almost seems slow, but it was just really well organized, and people moved in and out, and even the members' night, which is generally pretty chaotic, was very smooth, and they broke another record. So thank the Friends of the Library if you get a chance. Also, maybe could have been announcements. I'm happy that JMRL is filling some positions that have been open for a while. I'm pleased to inform the board that JMRL has hired for 2 management positions. We're going to be welcoming Maggie Bond as the library's new adult programming and reference service manager. And joining the library's administrative team will be Jeremy Lundgren, who is going to be the collection and technology manager, replacing Kayla Payne. They're both starting in mid to late January, I think the 19th. So we've got a little while. They're moving from out of state. We've got a little while to continue holding all the pieces together, but the cavalry is coming. Okay, special thanks to Martha and Brandy for making it to All Staff Training Day this year. It was a very well-received day of training. The venue was the Hillsdale Conference Center, which was just big enough for JMRL staff, almost big enough. the highest marks from the feedback that JMRL is still taking in from staff, but the highest marks were for the Trends in Publishing afternoon breakout session that was put on by JMRL selectors. So Meredith Vickens, Heather Pennick, and Megan Smead, just letting staff know like what books to be on the lookout for in the next year. And then De-escalation and Self-Defense, which was presented by library staff, Brittany Eversberg, Dylan Padilla, and Eric Buckenmeyer, which I think Brandy went to that one, yeah, and found it informative. I met with and offered tours of the Central Library to the new Charlottesville City Councilor candidate who is running unopposed in November, Jen Fleischer. So that's the presumptive new city councilor. And same story with the Albemarle Board of Supervisors candidate running unopposed in November, Sally Duncan. I met with both of them and met with Sally with Jane Kulo from the Friends of the Library Board. And I wanted to make sure they knew what the central renovation project needs were and the timeline was, because one measuring stick is coming up in fiscal year 27, which is the cost of the architecture and engineering project that's going to take place next year that the city and the county have in their current plans. They were both supportive, interested in it, but when they start, they're going to be taking office in January, which is already midstream. So I just wanted to kind of get ahead of the questions that they might have. There'll be one additional new supervisor in Albemarle, and I'll reach out after the results of next week's election for that new supervisor to come in and get the same kind of story. So we have met with most every counselor and supervisor from Albemarle and Charlottesville in the last few years. Speaking of the Central Library, couldn't wait for a renovation. Next time you were there, take a look at the new service desk in the children's room. Colorful, low height, plenty of storage for staff, which is very important. And special thanks to the Friends Endowment for funding this, as Jerry went through those funding things there. That was one of the CACF projects. You see, it was a very popular post. Yeah. And that is all I have to report at this moment.
Good. Any other matters, I guess? Thursday.
For the future agenda
Are
items.
we on the future
Yeah.
agenda? Budget report.
Yeah.
And the policy
From somebody.
committee will do a second read.
Second reading,
Second reading.
and there'll be a
And
vote on the proposed budget.
And a vote on those policies too.
Yes, so it will be important to have a quorum.
Crozet.
At Crozet and a week early.
And a week early,
Yeah.
so don't show up.
Don't come here on Thanksgiving.
So just so you all, let me get the actual date.
November 17th.
Thank you. November 17th at the Crozet Library is the next board meeting.
And there will be.
Yeah, exactly.
We could do, yes, we could take a roof tour afterwards if anyone is interested. I likely will reach out to the Crozet staff to see if they have any continuing ed that they are interested in presenting to the board. If not, we could wrap the handbook endorsement into a continuing ed as well. It's less exciting, but it's kind of here are the things that have changed. Handbooks, it's the last time I word out. What's the word?
Reviewed it.
Reviewed, yeah, but there's a. Endorsed.
I'll remind the board that the last time we met at Crozet, the highlight was going up on the roof of the Crozet.
So I said the roof tour.
Yes, last time I was there, it was full.
Ladder.
Yeah.
That was me.
It was full of spotted lanternflies last time.
Not a great
No.
November activity.
Right. Probably not.
No other committee meetings, so we're due to have a technology committee meeting before the end of the year. Pushing that a bit without the head of technology, but Peter and I will try to figure out a time and a cycle for that. Likely not in the 3 weeks between now and the November meeting, if that's okay.
Nothing else? Well, this is quick, wasn't it?
Just an efficient president.
Nothing going on. Well, lots of stuff going on though.
Just
Okay.
getting ready for budget next month.
Yeah.
Next time will be a longer meeting.
Yeah, that would be. Do I hear a? All in favor?
Nothing to do.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mike and Siri. Mike, safe travels.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Take them to show, so not have shopping.